Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Bold Predictions here at Inside Nebraska. With me, as always, is Steve Marik and Greg Smith. I'm Zack Carpenter, and guys, we have a little rivalry game, Black Friday, between Nebraska and Iowa to predict and pour over and overanalyze. Nebraska is now a 2.5 point favorite after opening as a 1 point underdog, basically a pick 'em. But still, if that line holds true, it'll only be the third time that Iowa is the underdog going into a game. And that the other two were Wisconsin and Penn State. So Wisconsin, Penn State, and Iowa, or Nebraska are the three teams that Iowa is going to be an underdog against. 26.5 point total for the over-under, which I don't know. It's the lowest for an Iowa game this year, which would then lead me to believe that it's the lowest point total in college football this year. But before we get into all that, big newsy day on Tuesday. We'll be showing this to you guys. So you guys probably listening or watching on Wednesday. Ty Robinson coming back. Tony White being contacted for the San Diego State head coaching position. But let's start off with that first one, Steve. I mean, Ty Robinson. I mean, it was a bombshell. I thought he was going to be coming back. Now he dropped the news that he's returning for a 6th year. So what's the impact there? How big of a deal is that?
Yeah, it's a huge deal, especially for Nebraska's defense that has really taken a step forward this year in Tony White's first season and just gotten, steadily better as the season gone on. It's got, the Huskers are one of the best rush defenses in the country, which is really cool to see. And Ty Robinson has been a big part of that. If you just like kind of what I like doing when you're rewatching the games, you like to maybe key on a guy here and there and just kind of watch him only for a few plays. I've been doing that with Ty Robinson. And he's just been a monster to finish the season. Second half of the season, he's just been unblockable sometimes. And, his technique, I think his hand warfare, that type of stuff, it's been really, really fun to watch because he's just like worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. That's a testament to himself getting better. It's a testament to Terrence Pot Roast Knighton, his defensive line coach. I think that guy is a rising star in the coaching industry, and it's a credit to Tony White too. Just looking at Ty Robinson, seeing this 6'6", 310-pound dude, and asking yourself, okay, how can I get this guy to be successful? And I think all the stunts, the slants, the everything that Tony White and Terrence Knighton do on at their defensive front, I think it really benefits Ty. And I think it's obvious to me that he's gotten so much more confident this season compared to last year. So, it's a massive deal. He's having a career year, and for him to come back, Nebraska's going to be getting a 6-year Ty Robinson. That looks pretty good. So when you look at elsewhere on the D-line and you close your eyes and try to picture what this defensive front is going to look like next year, you got guys like, now this is considering if everybody comes back, because who knows what's going to happen this offseason. College football is wild with transfer portal, NIL, all that stuff. It's smart to not be surprised about anything, any possibilities, because it's all up in the air right now. But with Ty Robinson coming back, you could have Nash Hutmacher coming back. You could have Kem Lenhart coming back, Jamari Butler, Blaze Gunnerson, Riley Van Poppel, Prince Will, Uman Mielen, a 250-pound James Williams. He's 235 right now, but Tony White talked today, and he said that, they're redshirting James Williams this year. He's not going to be playing against Iowa, they think. And then, once he gets in the offseason weight training schedule, conditioning, all that stuff, they want to bump him from 235 and try to get him, to 15 to 20 pounds heavier for next season, 2024. So he's not just a really rail thin type pass rushing guy. He's a guy who can rush a passer, but also kind of hold his own against the run. So I think that's going to be really interesting. You also have guys like rotation guys like Elijah Judy, Maverick Noonan coming off that knee injury that we didn't even see before. Who knows what he's going to bring in his first year? If Prince Umanyalan can do what he's doing, Cam Lenhart can do what he's doing, what's Maverick going to do? I mean, I'm really interested in that. So, when you close your eyes, look at 2024's defensive front with Ty Robinson, it looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. One point before I hit on White and kind of that big news, the one thing too, Steve, that I feel like no one ever remembers, and I remembered as you were talking about it, Ty Robinson didn't have a full offseason this year either. Remember that. So as we think about Ty taking off and ramping up here later in the season, a large part of that might also be that he's, back to the form that he should have been at the beginning of the season, because he had that offseason, I believe it was shoulder surgery, that he was recuperating from and missed all of spring ball. So getting a full offseason after having this career year, who knows where he could go in the offseason to continue to get better. So that's super exciting for Nebraska fans, because as we know in the Big Ten, it all starts up front, but it also starts on defense, right? And to be able to keep your defensive coordinator is going to be the portal priority one now for this offseason. And we found out today via reports that Tony White has been contacted by San Diego State for their vacant head coaching job. We know that Matt Rhule yesterday talked about, hey, he said, go get a job, is what he said to Tony White, because he had a search firm reach out for Tony White's phone number, and he told him all glowing things about Tony White and said that he would be able to do it. I thought that Matt Rhule's comments, though, were fascinating about taking the right job and making sure that you take a job where he said that expectations, oh no, I'm going to lose it. Expectations don't outweigh commitment. That's what it was, which I think it was smart, and it's true, but it also is a message to Trev Alberts and the brass here. Don't kid yourself that you better continue to spend, because no matter how much money Nebraska does have, they don't spend at the level of some of the other big boy programs in the nation. But that's a side note to what I'm actually talking about, which is Tony White being contacted for the San Diego State job. He's got strong ties to the West Coast, right? He was a 3-year starting linebacker at UCLA, began his career out there coaching at San Diego State, learned the 3-3-5 out there, also was at Arizona State. So he needs another kind of West Coast job. And so he's well familiar and versed with that area of the country. This is a threat. There's no real way to sugarcoat that. Like if Tony White gets an interview, he's going to be a strong candidate for this job, because of all of the things that all three of us here on this pod have seen from him this year. How many different times have we said, kind of off pod or off mic, just together, man, he seems like a head coach. Like that dude looks like somebody that's going to be a head coach. And so I just fully believe that if he does get an interview, like he'll kill it and knock it out of the park. And so we'll see where it goes. Like it all kind of depends on if Tony White thinks that San Diego State job is in fact the right one for him right now, or if he can continue to build this Black Shirts defense and get to maybe an even higher job, which I do think is possible. But it's hard to tell someone that kind of the bird in hand go be a head coach situation versus be able to pick and choose an even better situation maybe down the line. I don't know. That's tough. It's tough. It's really hard.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to hit on. Was I'm appreciative, or I'm glad, whatever phrase you want to use, that Matt Rhule said what he said, and that he is in full blown public support of Tony White or all of his assistants going and getting jobs, just because he's a guy who left from Temple to Baylor after 4 years, left from Baylor to Carolina after 3 years. So from that standpoint, it's like, I think he was sounding pretty hypocritical if he had any sort of tone like he wasn't like happy or like wasn't supportive of his assistants going and seeking other jobs, because that's exactly what he's done in the past multiple times. So that was good from that standpoint. And yeah, like you guys said, or like you said, Greg, Tony White is priority number one to keep this offseason beyond any of the portal guys. And he's probably the one that he might be the one that would be, from a financial standpoint, the easiest to keep, or not even easiest, but simplest, because it's like, if don't let money be an object. And I sort of assume that it won't be, based on how the coaching search went with Matt Rhule to get him here, where the financial burdens or the financial situation was not a hindrance to Trev Alberts. It looked like the price tag was getting higher, and he was told, don't let money be a factor. Go get your guy if like that's what needs to happen. I think Nebraska would pay Tony White. If you have to pay him Jim Knowles money, make him a $2 million D coordinator, then that's what you have to do. Like, you gotta keep a guy like that in the fold, because I mean, things are shaping up that if you bring him back, and now with Ty Robinson coming back, you could have one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten. You could have one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. And that's sort of what's been setting up all season, because like what Matt Rhule said yesterday or on Monday, we're in the building phase right now. Like one day, whenever that day is, we'll be in the contending phase. But right now we're in the building phase. And that's when you look at the defense specifically, if you are bringing back the ringleader of that whole operation and Tony White, and now you're bringing back the like main henchman in Ty Robinson, who I think is arguably the best defensive player on the roster, and that is arguable. Like he's not far and away, but he's up there. If you're bringing back those two guys just to start, you see a trickle down effect of Nash coming back and all the guys that Steve listed off. It's sort of setting up as like act one to this 2-part act of next year. They already have one of the best defenses in the Big Ten and one of the better ones in the country. But if you can take that to an elite level, you might wind up with the best defense in the Big Ten, one of the best defenses in the entire nation. I'm talking like top 10 unit overall. So really, really exciting. So we go from the Tony White stuff to where it's like, damn, like you kind of saw that coming. I think Rhule was setting that up last week when he was talking about how he wants his head coaches, or he wants to build a head coaching tree. And then this week, this stuff comes out. It's like, damn, Tony White might go. That, well, I guess we'll play. We'll play the cards were dealt, and then boom, 10 minutes later, Ty Robinson coming back. It's like, oh, okay. It's like that meme with the girl when she like drinks the thing. And it's like bitter at first, like ugh, and then oh, okay. So maybe something good comes out of it. So that's for the future, but for the here and now, on a bold predictions episode, Nebraska, Iowa, we spent so much time talking about those two guys because it's that important, and it could be important, will be important, I think, in all of our minds on Saturday against Iowa. So I'm going to bring it around. I'm going to stop talking and bring it around for bold predictions. I have a Ty Robinson one, so you guys can't steal it. So we'll bring it around to me at the end. Steve, what's your first one? You're up.
We're going to go from Ty Robinson to a kicker. All right. So my bold prediction is going to be Nebraska walks off the Hawkeyes with a 42-yard field goal as time expires to go bowling for the first time since 2016. Shout out Mike Riley. So that means Tristan Alvano is going to nail a 42-yarder as time expires and run the other way and celebrate with everybody. And the Huskers are going bowling. This kind of got me this week, thinking about Alvano because, we're filming this on Tuesday. Omaha Westside is going for a state championship tonight. And, last year's Class A state championship game, Westside beat Gretna, and that's where Tristan Alvano got his full ride scholarship from the performance that he had in that game, in that moment, in that stadium, Memorial Stadium. He drilled 5 field goals that night from distances of 26, 42, 44, 45, and even hit a 50-yarder. So Alvano was clutch in that game, and I think he'll be clutch on Friday as a Husker. And, maybe if we get lucky, maybe we can get him to blow a kiss to Kirk Ferentz and Brian Ferentz, something like that after he does it, just like the Iowa Hawkeyes own kicker did back in the Frost era. So we'll see. But my bold prediction, Tristan Alvano kicks a 42-yard game-winning field goal as time expires.
Yeah, first of all, I love that. I don't know that there's been one of these that I would like to see more, just because of how fired up that would make him, and how fun it would be in the stadium for that. I would just love to see that in that situation. Mine, though, would provide a little bit of chaos, which I'm going to pull a joker here and go with a little bit of chaos and say that I almost said Brock Purdy after these guys did it on the broadcast all game last week. Damn it.
That's what I was going to say. I noticed that. Like last 2 minutes.
Yeah, Chubba Purdy has a huge 250 total yards in the game. Now, which doesn't seem like a lot, but go look at those stat lines and you'll see that from Nebraska's quarterbacks, that's a big number, maybe the biggest total yardage all year. Harburg might have hit that one time this season, but he has 250 plus total yards, sparking a controversy heading into the offseason. Everybody right now thinks, and myself included, that Nebraska is going to have to go in the portal to fix their quarterback situation, right? I think that, I don't put words in you guys' mouth, but I feel like you're in agreement. And so like I said, I'm there as well. But what happens if Chuba Purdy actually goes out here after playing a good game last week? And I know I took a lot of crap on the board because I gave him a C on his post-game grade. And, oh my God, if that was a C, what was it last week? Well, the week before that, I gave it an F. So that was better. It's average. I thought it was an average performance. A lot of good in the beginning, not so much in the middle, and then okay in the end. So
after what we've seen all year, Greg,
listen, now I did it.
Quarterback
now you
position
said
all
it.
year. Like that's an A+++ with like
I'm not grading on a
pluses.
curve over here, man. Like we're over here. We're tough. We're tough in this household. And so it was
grade for Caleb Williams, like a B- for his best game.
No, don't get us started on Caleb Williams. A conversation about that. Anyway, I don't want to derail this thing. I think that if he has that type of performance, it does bring into question whether or not how hard Nebraska needs to go after a major starting quarterback candidate in the portal. And when I say major, I'm talking about guys that, I feel like NIL has been a thing that's come up all week. You've seen multiple coaches around the country say, we need more, because everybody's trying to get offensive, defensive linemen and some quarterbacks, right? But those guys are going to be expensive. If Chuba Purdy can show that Nebraska doesn't have to go get $1 million quarterback, maybe that helps. I'm going to say he gets that done this weekend with his 250 yards plus a total offense that makes people feel really good on the back of the performance last week. It will be a nice step forward.
And I am in total disagreement with that. I don't think it matters. He could come out and throw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. I don't think it matters at all. I think you still have to go after that $1 million quarterback in the portal. Like you cannot go based off a 2-game sample size and 1 drive sample size after all of the disastrous things we've seen all year from the quarterback position and feel good about just getting Chuba and then maybe getting a secondary guy in the portal. I think you're going to have to go get a quality type A type quarterback in the portal, no matter what we see on Saturday, just because you can't risk year 2 of the Matt Rhule era in this build. You can't risk not going after a guy like that. If you don't get him, okay, but you have to use your resources and go after a guy who you feel can bring the ceiling of this program up in year 2 and year 3. I mean, there is the risk though. Obviously there's the inherent risk of that. We saw it play out in the worst possible fashion with Jeff Sims, who has been, I guess it's arguable that he's been the worst quarterback in the country, or at least the Power 5 this year, because that's just what the results have said. But I don't know. I actually do think I agree with you though that I think Chuba Purdy I think he could have a good game. It's Iowa, so it's the biggest test of the season for this offense that's not good already. So his second start, pass rush is going to be coming after him. Like they have a good quality secondary, but Cooper DeJean's not on it again. So that plays into it, because what happened last year, Steve? Who woke up pissed off last year before the Iowa game?
The wide receiver from LSU.
Trey Palmer. So, does Malachi Coleman wake up pissed off during the game? I'm going to text him. I hope he needs to tweet that out. Like, I'm going to remind him of that.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of this is like, okay, last year you hate to say it, but talking facts, then I think the number one reason they beat Iowa last year is because of Cooper DeJean's injury, because right after that, the next series, he gets hurt on the first series of the game, and Nebraska immediately goes after the freshman corner who came in, and Trey Palmer burns him for an 87-yard touchdown, then gets another 18-yard touchdown, 195 yards receiving in that game. Like, it was a big factor, and then boom, 2 weeks before they're set to play again, Cooper DeJean out for the year with an injury. So it's like, you don't root for injuries to different players from Nebraska or other teams, but it does help. It does benefit Nebraska in this game. And I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see it another 60 or another 50+ yard touchdown reception. Saw Jaden Doss now have 2 of those with a 58-yarder against Wisconsin and a 73-yarder against Purdue. Those were the 2 longest pass plays of the season for Nebraska. The third longest was Malachi Coleman of 44 yards. And I'm going to go with Malachi to get that third one. I'm going to have him going for a 60-yard touchdown reception against Iowa and taking advantage of that absence of their star defensive player, their best guy on that side of the ball. So I have that, but when we bring it around for final score predictions, I'm going to go last because I still have been battling back and forth. Not as bad as the Nebraska Maryland game for me, but I've been battling back and forth on what I want to predict to happen. I might flip a coin. I see a quarter lying over there, so I might just go flip that and then pick. So final score prediction is going to bring it around real fast. Steve, what you got?
Yeah, I kind of gave a hint with mine with Alvano kicking a game-winning field goal. So Nebraska 16, Iowa 13. They get them for a second straight year.
You had a prime opportunity to go 13-10 and game-winning field goal as time expires. Because just as a nice,
I needed more points than that in this offensive showdown we're about to see Friday. I think it's supposed to be a high of like 33 degrees and like cloudy. So
the temperature the temperature is going to be higher than the
well, I see I have a snow emoji on Saturday, but there's nothing for Friday, so I don't know, maybe.
Oh, darn, I'm you know me, I'm so upset.
Snow would be awesome.
Yeah, for somebody. That has nothing to do with my score prediction. I am actually I think, am I hitting the over? I'm going to go Nebraska 17, Iowa 13. I do. It's another close, ugly one, but I do think Nebraska gets them 2 years in a row. I think the whole team is going to wake up pissed off, and I think Nebraska. And I've said this before. I know it makes some people mad. I feel like Nebraska players have finally started taking this rivalry seriously and got tired of being punched in the mouth by Iowa. It started 2 years ago, finally, and now I think that they're kind of settled into this rivalry. I think Nebraska wins at 17-13.
All right, you guys got me. Nebraska 14, Iowa 11. I'm trying to come up with the most random scores. I want to say 12 to 11.
It happens to Nebraska all the time. So
yeah. And then last week, it's the pregame of Wisconsin, Nebraska, and you look at the scoreboard, and Illinois 10, Iowa 9. It's like, what the hell, man? Like, well, how does that happen? And I think based on principle, I can't pick Iowa because this whole Kirk Ferentz I've been saying all year, or at least the last few weeks, this Kirk Ferentz deal with the devil thing is just it didn't bother me going into the year or even halfway through the year, but the more you see it happen, like I'm not a Nebraska fan, I'm not an Iowa hater. It's just driving me nuts that Iowa keeps winning these games when they scored 12 points or 13 points and they have one like 20-yard run on the last drive of the game that winds up mattering, that sets up the game-winning touchdown or game-winning field goal. I'm like, how do they keep doing this? Like, I feel like there's got to be a time where that comes back to bite them at least once. I'm banking on it to be this game against Nebraska. So I got 14-11. I'm under hitting by 1.5 points if it's sitting at 26.5, which is unbelievable that Iowa had a 27.5 point over under this year and still went under that point total. So I think also Steve was in the wake of the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. We were doing our rapid recap video, and Steve talked for like 2 minutes straight about like how the emotion in the locker room, like how mad and disappointed, like upset the players were, and how he thought that they were going to come out the next week against Iowa and play mad and play with heart and passion. And he was talking all this optimism. Like, man, if you have never seen a glass half empty, they're always half full. Like,
well, it came from just like sitting in that post-game press conference and watching, the guys that talked to the media. It was like Marquise Buford, it was Chubba Purdy, Nick Henrich. A lot of them had tears in their eyes. They weren't crying outwardly, but you could tell that they were holding so much inside. And I just thought to myself, they're all going to remember what they felt in the locker room at Wisconsin when they lost 24-17 in overtime. And they're going to use that as fuel to, let the fire burn inside. And, of course, it's Iowa. Everybody hates Iowa. They hate us. We hate them, blah, 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 all that stuff. I just think it's going to turn into, a positive thing for the Huskers. And I'm going with my gut with that. And it could definitely backfire in my face. It's the Big Ten West after all. Who knows what the hell is going to happen on Friday? But I just got the feeling when I was listening to them in that post-game presser when Marquise Buford or Nick Henrich, his voice was kind of like going fluttering up and down when he was answering questions. Of like, oh boy, I bet he's going to knock somebody's head off next week. So that's just where I'm coming from. But I just feel it inside. I think they're going to get this one.
I like it. I think that was kind of my biggest question of the week, and how would they respond to that? And so hearing Steve say that makes me feel better about my pick. So yeah, that's good.
And plus, it's like, what does Ty Robinson making that announcement before the game, telling everybody before the game that he's coming back? Does that like,
this could be
the good vibes going too?
Yeah.
It'd be even better if Tony White came out and said like, "Hey, I'm staying."
Yeah.
You know, it's like doing a Leo DiCaprio.
He's like, no, he does it. You got to do it after the game.
Leaving.
Yeah,
you got to do it after the game. It's like, I ain't leaving. And by the way, I got bumped to $2 million. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's the paycheck up to now, Tony? Yeah, it's not even important.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
It's not about money, guys. It's not about
money. Yeah, it's not about money. But salary got doubled. Not about nothing.
It may not be ultimately about money.
It might not be. Like, I actually don't get the feeling that that's the driving force for him. No, like, I don't know him a ton, but I know him well enough. Like, I don't think that that's actually the driving force with Tony White, honestly.
And it could be like, staying put, turning this defense and like showing consistently with the defense. Then obviously with the new teams coming into the Big Ten, does it get Tony White excited to see what his defense can do in year 2 or year 3 or year 4 with guys with UCLA coming to town, USC, Lincoln Riley, hot shot offense? Like, hey, come to Lincoln, or we'll go to LA. Check this defense out. I think that's maybe something that could be in the back of his mind, where if he just stays put, shows and just continues to build what he has built against some of these offenses that are coming into the conference next year. I think that might have something to play with it too.
Oh, I think it absolutely does. Like, I mean, San Diego State, you don't know, maybe they wind up going to some sort of Pac-12 or Pac-10 with Oregon State, Washington State, and whatever happens there, who knows? But there's that versus the stability of the Big Ten. And then you have the Syracuse opening too, obviously.
Yep.
And you just wonder, like, would he even be attracted to that job? Like, with all of the difficulties that brings, like with the poor recruiting base, and having to convince kids to come up to Syracuse to play football, and like getting the quality guys that you need to get. Like, he doesn't have experience as a head coach yet. So I think it'd be a really tough place to go for your first job, but maybe he sees that he can do it. I'm not trying to like make the case that he should stay. I'm just sort of spitballing random thoughts out there. So who knows what lies down the line for Tony White? We know what lies down the line for Ty Robinson, and that's not just an Iowa game that they could use as a springboard. It's also another 6th year to try to increase his draft stock and make this defense perhaps one of the best in the Big Ten and one of the best in the country next season. But final thought is just, like you guys said, this could be a springboard game. Ethan Piper said it at Big Ten Media Days in the summer about how big beating Iowa was last year, just to get he said, some sort of semblance of an accomplishment to sort of lead into this next era. So maybe we see it again on Friday as they take on Iowa. It's 11 a.m. Central kickoff on CBS. I don't remember the last time Nebraska was on CBS. I think it was a bowl game several years ago. I have to look that up. I'm sure plenty of viewers and listeners know when they're screaming like you're an idiot. But facts, good point. But we'll see on Friday what goes down between these two in the rivalry game. So for Steve Marik and Greg Smith, I'm Zack Carpenter. We'll catch you guys again next time.